Hi everybody, and thank you again for watching another episode of Gaffer in Gear. In episode 239, I did a review of the EcoFlow River 2, which was a compact 800 watt battery station. In today's episode, I'm going to do a follow-up review on the EcoFlow Deta Max. This unit here has a 2 kilowatt battery system and can deliver 2.4 kilowatt of stable power. So this can actually run a 1200B for an hour and a half at full brightness. Now for our Australian and US viewers, there are links below to the Black Saturday sales. If you enter in the code GAFFERGEAR, you can get an additional 5% discount on top of the already discount prices. Now usually I don't do affiliate links because these links take work away from the local distributors. But as this product is very region specific, I'm going to make an exception in this case. Okay, so I've got a bit of building going on today with the house, so you can probably hear that in the background. This is Max. He's a bit scared of all the construction work, so he's just decided he's going to be very brave and push himself into me for the start of this episode at the very least. All right, so let's talk about price. So there's quite a bit of price range on this. So in terms of US dollar prices, the most I've seen it selling for is $2,099, but I have seen it as cheap as $1,400. So there might be some sales on at the moment, so I'm just going to give you the top prices on the screen. And in terms of Australian dollars, the most I've seen it selling for is $3,600, and the cheapest price I've seen it selling for is $3,199. So that's quite a bit of price range. Now, if you're buying it at those top prices, you're probably thinking, well, I could buy a petrol generator with a lot more power for about the same amount of money, and you definitely could. So in terms of a system like this, you'd really use it in a situation where you can't have the fumes from a generator or you can't have the noise from a generator, something like that. But in terms of if you're looking to buy this as an alternative to a petrol generator and your situation, you know, either one could be usable, I think you'd have a hard time justifying the spend. Okay, so petrol generators would definitely have their place. These aren't a replacement, but they can be useful in situations where you can't use a petrol generator. The next thing I want to mention is I reviewed this or tested this using firmware version 1.6.2.52. So the reason I'm pointing that out is in the 2 weeks that I've been testing it, it's already had 3 firmware updates, so they're constantly improving it. Now let's go through the specifications. This thing has a rated output of 2,400 watts and it can handle a surge of 4,600 watts, which is really handy, especially as with LED lights, we can't always control what brightness level they turn on at. It has a 2016 watt-hour battery system. It has an easy to understand user interface. It can rapidly charge off AC power. It can also charge off solar and car power. The Australian version has 4 power outlets. The USB-A outlets can do 12 watts. The USB-A fast outlet can do 18 watt. And the USB-C outlet can do 100 watt. And the car output can do 126 watt. All right, now one of the big stats for me and why this won't be for everybody is its net weight. It does come in at 22 kilograms, which is a little bit on the heavy side. So if you're after something a bit more lightweight and you only need to run, say, 800 watts, have a look at the previous review I did. That unit might be of more interest to you. Now, because this is a film and television lighting channel, the bulk of people watching this are only really interested in how long can you run different wattage lights off this battery system. Now, I'm going to give you 3 figures. So the first figure I'm going to give you is the estimated runtime that appeared on the screen. The second figure is the estimated runtime on the app, and the third figure is the actual runtime of the light. Now, there is quite a difference between the actual runtime and the estimate. So I'm putting that difference down to cooling fans cycling on and off. That's the cooling fans in the EcoFlow and the cooling fans in the lights. So let's start off with a Nova P300C, which was pulling 341 watts. The screen estimated 6 hours, the phone app estimated 5 hours and 56 minutes, and the actual runtime was 5 hours and 31 minutes. Next, I tried an RE Sky panel. The on-screen estimate was 5 hours, the app predicted 4 hours and 47 minutes, and the actual runtime was 4 hours and 23 minutes. Next, I tried a Nova P600C. The on-screen estimate was 3 hours, The app's estimate was 3 hours and 10 minutes, and the light actually ran for 2 hours and 46 minutes. Next, I tried a Forza 720B. The on-screen estimate was 3 hours. The app prediction was 2 hours and 48 minutes, and the actual runtime was 2 hours and 33 minutes. Next, I tried a Nanlux Evoke 900C. The screen predicted 2 hours, the app predicted 2 hours and 18 minutes, and the actual runtime was 2 hours and 9 minutes. With the Evoke 1200B, the estimated runtime on the screen was 2 hours, the app predicted 1 hour and 44 minutes, and the light actually ran for an hour and a half. And then finally, I tried an Aperture 1200D. The on-screen prediction was 1 hour, the app predicted 1 hour and 31 minutes, and the light actually ran for 1 hour and 21 minutes. Now on the side of the Deltas here, you've got 2 battery inlets. Now these battery inlets are for external batteries, and the external batteries look like the Deltas here. So they're pretty much the same shell. The only difference is they don't have the power outlets and the power inverters on them. So you can link another 2 batteries to this, and that can give you around 6 kilowatts of battery storage. Now I just want to point something out here. That's 6 kilowatts of battery storage, not 6 kilowatts of power output. So the power output is limited to what the inverter system can deliver. So the inverter system on this is rated at 2,400 watt. So it can deliver more than 2,400 watt, but 2,400 watt is what it's rated at to give you the correct voltage and the correct power frequency. So I know what's going to be asked if I don't do this test. Can it actually deliver 2,400 watts constantly? That's a very good question, and I'm curious myself. All right, so I've got 2 Evoke 1200s here. Now I've got both of these set to 100% brightness and maximum fan. So the fan's running at high speed, and they're set to 5,600 Kelvin. So from my experience with these units, because these are mine and I use them all the time, that'll be just under 1,200 watts per light. So the 2 combined will be very close to the 2,400 watt limit. Now, if I was on a job and I was asked to do this and I didn't have time to do this test, there's no way I would do this. I would run the lights at about 90% brightness. The cinematographer will never notice that 10%, but he will notice if the lights turn off halfway through a shot. So I wouldn't be that brave to push it that close to an inverter limit. My experience with petrol generators that have inverters is if you go right up to the limit, they'll run for about 30 minutes and then the inverter will overheat and they'll shut down. So I always like to have a little bit of leeway. Okay, so we've got the first light turned on, and that's pulling 1,138 watts. So if I turn the second light on, we should still be under that 2,400 watt limit. So let's just have a look at that. But again, that's a bit too close for me. I wouldn't trust doing something like this on a set. Okay, so we're 2,331 watts out. Now listen to those fans going. Now it's predicting 51 minutes of runtime. I don't think it'll do 51 minutes, so I'm going to turn on a stopwatch, and I'll see you back soon. I'll let you know how far we got. All right, so that test didn't go anything like I expected. So I got to 2 minutes and 47 seconds and everything shut down. So this came up with an overload warning on the front. So I'm not sure what happened there. Possibly the lights pulled more than 2,400 watt and the unit shut down before that information got updated onto the screen. So I'm not 100% certain. So I'm going to reset the clock, start the test again, but this time I'm going to bias a little bit more leeway, and I'm going to run the lights at 95% brightness. All right, so let's turn the first light on and see what that reads on the battery system. So let's have a look. So that's saying 1,058 watts. Okay, so let's turn the second light on. I'll just definitely check that that's at 95. Yep. Second light is definitely at 95. So now we're pulling 2,155 watts. So let's see how we go with this test. And it's predicting 54 minutes runtime. Let's start the clock and see what we get. All right, so we've been running for 45 minutes and 30 seconds, and we just got our 1 minute left warning on the phone app. Okay, so let's take a look at the data that we've got here. All right, so the batteries are running at 56 degrees Celsius, 2,228 watts output. Now, the fans are definitely kicking along here. It's not silent running by any means, but if you were shooting on, say, a car rig or something like that, you know, with the car on a low loader, This is way quieter than a petrol powered generator. I doubt you'd hear this if the actors are talking inside the car and this is outside the car. I think this would be a very good option. Okay, we got 48 minutes and 1 second of continuous runtime there, so that's quite impressive. Okay, and the battery's finished off at 58 degrees Celsius. So why am I mentioning the temperature of the batteries there? Who cares? Well, the temperature of the batteries affect the charging rates. So if the batteries are cold, they won't charge as fast. If the batteries are hot, they won't charge as fast. And if the batteries are really hot like they were there, 58 degrees, they won't charge at all until the temperature comes down to 45 degrees. Now, if you're trying to charge them and they're too hot, a warning comes up on the screen so you know what's going on. Now, just to explain why I'm mentioning this, it took 1 hour and 13 minutes for the batteries in this to cool down from 58 degrees down to 45 degrees where they started to charge. And at 45 degrees, the batteries are still warm, so they're not charging at a super fast pace. So it took another 2 hours and 11 minutes to charge. So the wait time plus the charge time came to 3 hours and 24 minutes. So that's quite extreme. Now, normally if I'm running just one light, say a 1200 like this one here, it'll go on charge straight away. And you're typically looking at about 1 hour and 43 minutes to 1 hour and 50 minutes to get back up to fully charged. Now, normally too, at about the 60-minute mark, this thing will be charged up to about 75%. It's just that last 25% seems to take quite a bit of time. In fact, the last 0.5% takes about 10 to 11 minutes. Now, when this thing is charging off AC, it can pull up to 2000 watts, but you can set a custom limit on the phone app. Now, one thing I really like about the Deta Max here is you can toggle between that custom load limit and maximum power with a switch on the back. So this is why I think this is a great idea. I have in my lighting vans portable petrol generators that have a load limit of 1600 watt. So I could program in that load limit into the Delta. So if I want to charge these up on those portable generators or give them a top up, I can just flick the switch down into the custom setting and I know I'm not going to trip the generator. And then when I get back here to the workshop and I want to charge this thing fast, I can just flick the switch up into the maximum charge position. All right, so before we get into the next segment, I just want to point out that there is going to be some flashing. So if you're photoepileptic or you just swallowed a couple of disco biscuits, this might be a good time to look away. All right, so we're going to go through a scenario in which these battery stations actually have an advantage over a petrol powered generator, and that is in response time. So a petrol powered generator has to generate the power that it's going to send out, whereas this already has the power stored, so it can send it out with a faster response time. All right, so I'm going to put the lightning effect on these. So if we had a portable petrol powered generator, you would need at the very least to turn off the eco throttle to get the generator rev up so it's got some chance of delivering those quick inrush currents. And even in that scenario, you can still get the odd occasion where the generator will stall. So let's turn these on. So we've got the lightning effect on both of these running at full power. So 1200 watts each, lightning effect strobing. And I'm going to run this for about 10 minutes and we'll see how the EcoFlow Deta Max goes. Now, I've been running this test for just a little bit over 10 minutes now, and I've got these both running on different timing cycles, so they do overlap from time to time. And look, the noise you can hear, the cooling fan noise, is from the lights. It's actually not from the EcoFlow. The fans on the EcoFlow have turned on a few times, so I'm guessing the inverter is working and getting a little bit hot, but as you can hear, definite advantage over, say, a petrol-powered generator in this sort of circumstance. Okay, so let's talk about using this as a UPS. That's an uninterruptible power source or uninterruptible power supply. All right, so what does that mean? Well, at the moment, I've got a 300 here powered up. Now, this is receiving its power via the mains electricity coming into my house. That's going through the EcoFlow and to this. So in this test here, I'm going to disconnect the power, and then the EcoFlow ideally will take over instantaneously, so there's no delay or no interruption to the light coming out. All right, so these guys technically on their website don't claim that this device can do that. I actually can't find any stats as to what the switchover rate is. Now, I've discovered over my testing in the last couple of weeks that if you're running a smaller light, it does it no problem at all, but if you're running a larger light, there can be a bit of a delay which can trip the computer systems in the lights. All right, so we're going to start off with the 300 here and see how we go. So once again, AC power running through the delta to the light. All right, let's turn everything else off. I'll get this power cable where you can see it, and let's have a look. Okay, no problem at all there. Let's plug it back in. Let's see if that trips anything. Okay, no problem. Now let's give a sky panel a go. And plugging it back in. No problem. Okay, let's keep stepping up. Now we're going to try a Nanlite 720B. No problem there. Now let's try it with an Evoke 900C. And reconnect. No problem. Okay, so let's try a 1200 now. So this is about 1300 watt power draw. All right, so as you can see there is a delay. The computer system trips out. So somewhere between 900 and 1300 watts, you get the issue. Now, while we're talking about UPS, here's a true story. So the first time I came across one of these 2000s was actually on set. It was being used as the UPS for the data backup for the camera department. So I was very curious as to why they had a 2000. It seemed very overkill to me. I thought maybe they wanted it for the extended battery life. I wasn't quite sure. So when I asked the cinematographer why they had the 2000, this is the explanation he gave to me. I bought the 2000 so I could use it on set as a tax write-off, but I actually use it for when I go camping to make my cups of tea. I can't be bothered lighting a fire to boil a cup of water when I could just use a kettle. Okay, so I really like this EcoFlow unit. EcoFlow did send this to me for free for me to do the review, and I get to keep it. And I want to look after this unit, so I've bought the rain jacket with my own money. So the first thing I'll point out, I ordered the rain jacket through the Australian distributor, and it arrived at my front door 2 business days later. So they've definitely got stuff in stock, which is always a plus. All right, so why did I buy a jacket for it? Okay, so I just want to talk about my generators for a little bit. I've got 5 Honda generators. 4 of them are over 20 years old now, and they run superbly. I really do take care of them in terms of their mechanics. However, I never bought jackets for them. And some of my colleagues who bought generators at the same time, they bought jackets for theirs. Now, fast forward 20 years later, my generators look beaten to shit. Okay, so they don't look great. My colleagues' generators, they look immaculate and brand new. So what does that matter? Well, as an owner-operator, it doesn't bother me one bit because I know it's going to turn on. But when people rent them off me, they look at the generators a little bit sideways like, is that going to turn on? They just don't have that faith that you get when you look at something and it's in immaculate, pristine condition. Imagine this, imagine you're hiring a rental car and you get the keys and you walk out to the car park and there's the car. Now that car might have the engine in immaculate condition, the brakes might be superb, but it's got gaffer tape holding the front bumper on. You'd be a little bit concerned. And that's the sort of concern I can see in my rental clients' faces when they look at my old generators. But if I kept them immaculate, if I kept them in a jacket, they wouldn't have that concern. All right, so let's start talking about this. So you've got access to the carry handles on either side, which is very, very good. You've got on the top a large opening or a large compartment that you could store things like, say, the instruction manuals in if you're doing rentals, for example. Now, before you turn this unit on, it's going to need to ventilate. So on the sides, you've got these flaps that expose the air vents, and you've got these supports which stop the flaps from closing, okay? So no rain's gonna get into that air vent. I'll just do the same thing on the other side. Now, something to be careful of here, I'll just spin this around so you can see a bit more, is these supports are only plastic, okay? So I've already broken this one. So I broke it by moving it around on the table in an earlier take. I just banged it and snapped it. So I'll be replacing that with some metal inside there. But you sort of get the idea that no water is going to come in through the air vents. All right, so all you've got to do now is turn it on. Now on the front, you've got a nice clear opening, so you can see the display, no problem at all. Now, if you can't see the display, chances are you just got your handle cover over it. Just tuck that up and there you go, you can read everything. You've got access to your USB ports here via this little compartment. Now let's have a look at the back compartment, and this is where I do have a big negative with this. Okay, so to get to my power outlets, unzip the compartment at the back. Now this might only be a problem with Australian plug tops because Australian plug tops are pretty big. All right, so I can't feed this cable in underneath the jacket. I can't feed it in through the handle compartment here, it doesn't fit. The only way I can plug this in is if I feed it through the front here. Now, because this compartment only has a single zip, I can't fully seal it. Okay, that's really dumb. I mean, this is the part that I would most want weather protected. And this, in terms of how silly I think this is, if they just had like a flap with 2 zips and an opening at the bottom you could feed the cables through, no brainer. That's pretty straightforward, but this is that just seems really dumb to me. Now, for me, it's not the end of the world. You know, I could probably get my wife, she's great with a sewing machine, I'm not. I could probably get her to make something that could sew on the front and give me a bit more weather protection there. At the end of the day, I could just put a piece of plastic on the front with a shop bag on it to stop any weather getting in there, but that just seems to me like an obvious design fault. They could have done way better with that. All right, the phone app. Let's have a quick chat about that. So I've got a few friends who own these and none of them used the phone app. They couldn't figure out how to get the phone app to work. So I found that quite interesting when they told me that, because at that point I didn't have this yet. I'd only reviewed the little one, and the little unit connected to the phone app really easy. But when I got this, it was a struggle to connect it to the phone app because there were no instructions on how to do it. All right, so if you want to connect this to your phone app, open up the phone app, turn this on, and then in your mobile phone device, go to your Wi-Fi settings and connect your Wi-Fi to the EcoFlow. At that point, the app will then discover the EcoFlow and it will run you through how to connect to your home or workshop Wi-Fi, so you can then do your firmware updates, and then the Bluetooth will start working. So you've just got to connect your mobile device initially to the EcoFlow via the Wi-Fi connection, and then after that, you'll be able to run it via Bluetooth at any location that you're at. So looking through some forums, one concern that a lot of gaffers have is this thing's computerized. You know, it's got a user interface, all that sort of stuff, whereas a petrol-powered generator doesn't have this sort of computerization. What if the computer crashes? What if you do a firmware update and it completely stuffs up? Have you now got a house brick? I mean, is this thing now useless? So I decided to test that. So the only way I could figure out how to test that was to wait until the next firmware update came in and then pull the power halfway through the firmware update, which is literally the worst case scenario you can do with a computer device. All right, so this is what happened. I turned it back on, the screen stayed black, and all I could hear was relays clicking inside it, so I thought I'd killed it. When I turned the phone app on, the phone app detected that the EcoFlow wasn't working properly. The phone app informed me that the firmware update was interrupted. Do I wish to continue doing the firmware update? So I clicked yes. It was a very nervous 17-minute wait, but it recovered the EcoFlow. So I haven't been able to crash this. All right, so just my closing thoughts on this. I really like it. It's not a petrol generator replacement. I'm just going to put that out there. For me, the scenarios I would use this, I can't have the sound of a petrol generator. I can't have the fumes of a petrol generator. I had a job the other week where this would have been really handy if I had it, where we were shooting indoors and the position that we wanted a 1200 watt light in, there was no power outlet that wasn't in shot. This would have been a savior in that sort of scenario. I'm going to be very curious as to how this rents out. Do people actually want to rent this item? So that's a bit of an unknown. I'll let you know how that goes. All right, thank you again for watching another episode of Gaffer and Gear. Don't forget down in the description if you want to buy this, if you live in the USA or in Australia, there's a link there where you can get another 5% off. Okay, take care everyone. Now there's a couple of things I forgot to mention. The battery chemistry is NCM. These guys claim 800 charge cycles to 80% capacity and a 1-year shelf life after it's fully charged. And Max also found his courage and started bossing everybody around.